Welcome everyone to day one of our technical BA workshop. Today we are going to learn how applications work from a business analyst perspective. So we'll explore how customer data travels through the system, learn from when it's entered in a form through the backend processing and backend back to screen as a result. So by end of this session, you'll understand how to identify technical components, capture requirements, write user stories, and explain them to the team without writing any code. So let's get started. So our scenario use case today is an online registration feature. The customer enters their first name, last name, email, and phone number to register. So the system should save information in database and show a confirmation message. As a BA, your role is understand which parts of the system handle data and how document properly. Okay, so I'll show you. I built this application using Python Django. So I'll show you what is the expected result here. So think this is your online application. We collect information in the front end. Email 123@gmail. So this is what we try to build, and 416, this is not a valid phone number. Okay, and we click register. Okay, so before I click register, I want to show you we are going to use for the demo purpose SQL Lite database here. So this is the database currently. Let me go to the database. So you see the customer app customer. So there are two customers are registered. So once I hit register button, this new customer. So let's name it new customer. The new customer John will get stored in database. Okay. So this is the expected result we try to achieve, and how to gather requirements and how to write user story for this one. Okay, so let me go ahead and hit submit. Okay, so you see customer is registered successfully, and we should see a record here. Let me go to another table and customer app. So you see our new customer first name and last name is the John, and the email ID. So this is how from all the way to the front end, and the data is saved in backend and give back the result, right? So the result is given, customer registered successfully, right? So how this happen, I'll show you the middle layer. So here is my coding to that particular task stored in database. So there is no API involved right now. So simply we collect the information and it goes through this one and store into our database. Okay, so this is our use case today, and we'll see how we can capture requirement and how to write user stories for this use case. Okay, so the customer is online customer. So first, when you get a use case or scenario, you need to identify what are the features of functionality, right? So that's very important. So here, what are the features? The registration form, right? That's we need a registration form where customers can users input their data. That's the first thing. The registration form is this one. Okay. So backend logic, validate and save the data. So validate and save the data here, validating whether we are entering the right data and customer successfully this message. So this is the part, right? And sorry, I have to switch back. database store customer data. So you have seen our database is customer app customer data table store successfully this data. Okay, so that's the third part. And confirmation message. So confirmation display the error or display. So here you see the customer registered successfully. So these are the features we identify for this use case. It's very important. So when reviewing requirement, we identify which part belongs to front end and backend API or microservice and database. So this helps communicate effectively with developers and testers. So with this one, collecting information, registration. So this is the input, right? And this is the backend logic, and this is also backend logic to validate. This data should be stored in the database. Okay. So now we identify the features from the business use case. Now let's map it up. Let's understand the bigger picture, and let's plot it this one in a diagram. Okay. So first understand flow system work. The input, right? Customer fill the application, process in the backend, store in the database, and system should display. So we are simplifying whatever we understood here. Okay, right? This information. So now go to process mapping. Sorry. So the process mapping, you can use any tool, Word, Excel, anywhere you can draw a diagram, but in professional world we use Visio. Since I don't have the access to Visio, so I'm going to use Draw.io. It's similar like Visio free tool, web-based, to draw the diagram. Okay, so let's switch back to the diagramming tool here. So the flow start with customer, right? So customer from front end, that's the start. So let me, this is the start, customer form. It's a start. So inside the bracket, maybe I'll tell this is your front end. Oh, input. So that's the first step for us. Maybe. So next step, you can use this one, backend logic, right? Backend logic or processing. See data we are capturing correct or not, right? So you can have one more. Next one, database. So this one for storage. And one more, finally confirmation message. So where the confirmation messages belongs to, it's go to output. Okay, so these are the first. Customer enter the front end form, go to the backend, this is the start, and once it's done, this is the end. Okay, so now we identify the business use case, we identify the features and functionalities, we draw a diagram, simple diagram. You can draw a swimline diagram. You can, I'm just, for the time being, just using the simple straightforward diagram. You can do whatever detailed diagram you need. Okay, so next step is to writing the Jira story. So we are going to use Jira for this one. We can simply go and create the user story here. Click user story, and user story title. We can use this one, customer registration. Customer registration form. Okay. So you can add more detail here. Just for the simplicity, I'm just using this one. Okay. So hit create. So it's created. Okay, it's created. There is no description over there, so I'm going to open in a different tab so that we can modify this user story. Okay, so let's write user story. Okay, so how the user story format? So who is the user, right? I'll just write first, I want this the template, right? So that, okay, so who is the user here? A new customer. Okay, so we can use loan customer as a user. So whatever it's suitable for you, just for the simplicity, we can just keep new customer. I want to, what is the functionality user is looking for? Register by entering my personal details. Okay, so this is the customer. Customer want to provide their information so that my information is stored and I can begin a loan application later. Okay, so you can add more detail, and just for this demonstration we can keep it simple. So next one, acceptance criteria. Okay, so acceptance criteria is nothing but the definition of that. Okay, so let's add bullet here. So right, you can use given, when, then format, but just for explanation we can just write a sentence. Okay, when all required fields are filled and I click, I mean user. Okay, maybe we can write register, the register button. We can write user clicks on register button. The data should be saved in the database. Okay, so when all required fields are filled out and user clicks on register button, the data should be saved in the database. That's the first one. Okay, you can write more detail. Okay, so I'm just for save the time, the message customer registered successfully should appear. Okay, so otherwise you can write display a message. This is the message we should see. Okay, and if required fields are missing, the system should. So here, this case I will write, but the application I show, I'm not validating the fields. In later on I'll add that logic. Missing. So if the fields are missing, what I'm talking about here, where is the customer registration here? So if the fields are missing when you hit submit button, let's try it out. I'm not sure if I have that validation. Yeah, it's saying filled out, so it's not throwing the error, but the application, when you're writing, we need to add this one. So I need to adjust my logic. So that what I'm trying to say here, if there is no information entered here, when you hit the submit button, it should show something it's showing here, fill out this field, if the field is missing, something like this. Okay, so we need to capture that one in the, so if required fields are missing, the system display on error message, right? So we are just showing fill up this information, it's mandatory. The system should display an error message or warning or like a tooltip, something. Okay, so just to know the user you are missing this field. Okay, so then I think we covered everything what we need here, and also you can enter the fields here. Okay, so under just add the requirement, the new fields. So this way it's clear what field should go here, right? So you can see customer registration, first name, last name, email, phone number, right? First name, last name, email, phone number. The labels you need. Okay, so you can add more detail if it's optional or mandatory field. Here you can add its optional or mandatory field, and length of this field, 15 character or 20 character, how long this field should accept, and what data type it's accept, like text, alphanumeric, or number, or special character. So you can add all these conditions to field, okay, when you are capturing requirement. How long this one, if it's optional field or mandatory field, everything you can add here. So that's way. And messages, right? If success, you can add customer registered successfully. So this is the success message. Error message, please fill out this field, or something like that. Okay, so this way is clear when you are testing, right? So you add this user story, can save this one. Okay, so now we are ready our user story, right? So next step, this user story is already in the backlog. If you refresh, so this user story customer registration form is already in the backlog. So we don't have a story pointed here, right? So you see there is no story point. So how do you explain to your technical team this user story. So as a BA, you need to explain to your requirement clearly to developers. Explain how the data will validate it and save. The tester explain which fields validation rule test and verify the database. And business owner also, you need to get alignment in the error message, the success message also, right? So you'll go through the same way we did. So you can start with, okay, so this is, we receive a new, here, this is starting. So we receive a new business requirement to build a loan application. So that's, you talk about your use case or scenario. And second, you identify. So you talk about, once you have the business use case, you talk to your team. So we are building a customer registration form. All the way we have to save it in database, right? So this case, there will be a question about, do we need to build the API? So yes, in later on we need to build the API, but for this explanation we don't need the API. So we're just collecting the form and store it into the database. Okay. And you can switch back to more understanding, explain your expected functionality. You can show your diagram, okay, and you can explain to your team, this is what required, okay. And third one, once you can come back to the user story. So we haven't created any epic or anything, just we jump into the directly. So this is the front-end user story. You can right, if you need this front end or UI, so maybe we'll write UI only using as a new customer, I want to register form. So these are the fields we are going to get. So again, based on the business requirement, you can write the field length, what characters you are going to include here, and this is applicable for all the fields. And success message and the error message you can confirm with the business, and you can capture here. For the testers, they need to validate, they can fill up the form, like they can fill the form here, right? And they can verify all the way in the database whether the record has been inserted or not. Okay. So that's the end-to-end discussion. Now is your turn. So we discussed this one. We got the estimation. So estimation, when you're talking about simple form, 2-3 points, complex backend. So this is not anything complex. So we are just building a form and all the way to verifying the backend. So I would say, to be fair, because we need to build the form and we need to take care of it in the we need to store it in the database. So including testing, I would estimate this user story as 5 or 8. So let's go with 8. Okay, so there we go. So story is ready to work. There's no dependency. So we are only focusing on the technical aspect here. So 8, I would go with 8. Now go back to our learning. So now next, you have exercise here. You can follow the same thing. Customer logs in using email and password. System validate credential, display welcome message. So this is your use case. So this case, a new customer, the customer we registered, it's already registered customer, no longer asking this is information. So using their credential, they want to log into system. That's your use case. Follow the same procedures what we did. Identify the feature and functionality, draw a process flow, write your user story, be ready, discuss with your team. Okay, so answer will be discussed in the next session. Okay, so what you learn here your learning summary today: how to identify input and process and output in a system, and break business requirements into front-end, back-end API. We didn't discuss API here, so we discussed front-end and database. How to write a user story and acceptance criteria for this simple use case, and we visualize the data flow, drawing process mapping, and we explain to the team and estimate the user story. Okay, and now next one is to understand your knowledge. We can take a small MCQ. There are 10 MCQs are there. We can just go to MCQ and we can answer those questions. Test your knowledge. Okay. Okay, so let's quickly go these MCQs and identify what are the important questions we learn from this MCQ, just to test our knowledge. Okay, and I think before that we can read the question. What is the primary role of a business analyst when receiving a new feature or requirement? So I will not read the answers. Okay, so I will directly go to the question. So I will directly go to the answer. So understand the requirement and identify system component and document the user story. That's what we did first, right? Second one, in the online registration use case, which component handle the users from input? Is it backend, frontend database, or microservice? So we collect the form from the frontend. Okay, so that's the right answer. Question number 3, what is the purpose of process mapping in BA work? To write SQL queries, to generate report automatically, to debug. So you have to choose the best answer to visualize how data flows across through components. That's the right answer. So question number 4, which layer is responsible for validating users' input and saving to the database? Which one? Where do we validate it? We validate it in the backend, right? So after we collect information. So C is the right answer. Question number 5, which of the following is an example of output in online registration module? Entering first name, database table, success message, customer registered successfully, backend validation logic. So this is the right one, success message, customer registered successfully, right? So next one, when writing a user story, what is the correct structure? Can guess? So this is the right structure, write a user story, user, feature, and what is the benefit, right? Question number 7, what is the acceptance criteria? A step in process mapping, a way to measure if a user story is complete and works as intended, a UI design, a backend API name. So right answer B, a way to measure if a user story completed, work as intended. Definition of that. Okay, that's the purpose of acceptance criteria. Which tool can be used to create a visual process flow diagram? So this case, you can choose Visio and Draw.io. That's the tool we use, the free version. Okay. And question number 9, why it's important for a business analyst to identify front-end, back-end API and database component. Right answer to understand how the system work and communicate requirement clearly. Okay, so last question. In the context of BA work, which there is not a part of input, process, and output. Writing unit tests in code, right? So fill in the form, front-end, back-end, database. Okay, so now let's go back to discuss our interview question, how you can use this knowledge answer when you're answering to interview question in a technical round. So the first question, tell me about a time you identify system component of a new feature. So there can be a question like this, okay? So you can, you don't need to read it out, this one. So this just for your explanation, I'm using star method. You can just modify, just take as a reference this one, okay? So I'll just quickly read. So when I'm working, the situation I'm explaining, when I am working on a loan customer registration application, I need to handle how the system work, which is a new functionality or the system feature. That's a task. So I identify the new features and create a process flow to identify whether this requirement is belongs to front end or back end, right? The result, I had clear understanding how the system changed and how the feature should work as expected, right? So that's the first answer. Second one, so you can modify this, use like a base reference, okay? How do you ensure that a user story capture all necessary functionality? So we are just again telling the same thing. While I am getting a requirement, stakeholder provided high level input because stakeholder, they don't know how the system works. So they will tell you need a form to collect customer information for the loan project. So I created complete actionable user story, of course, that's your task. I broke down the requirement in smaller component. This is important to validate each with the stakeholder, wrote clear acceptance criteria. I mean, front end, back end, API, or microservice, or something like that. The resulting user comprehensive and developer could implement the feature without clarification delays. This happen if you don't talk and explain the requirement very well to the developers. Next one, how do you explain a technical requirement to a non-technical stakeholder? This is very important question. Stakeholder need a approve and backend. So usually when business say we need a form, business does not know whether they know this saved in backend, but if you need any validation, customer input, anything, right? So I had as a business analyst, you process clear someone without a technical background, without using technical jargon word. You can just talk in the customer side. You can show you a diagram like how the data flow through input and how this process in the backend and go all the way to the database, right? So this way, stakeholder can understand the workflow and they can provide necessary approval without confusion. How do you handle missing and unclear information in a requirement? Again, we are talking about the loan project, some validation rule. So validation means the field should be 15 character alphanumeric. So my goal was to ensure was complete before passing it to development, right? So the format I use, you can ask all these questions, cross it out, and so that you can capture it. Question, analyze process gaps. So you are confirming the business team, how, what type and format and everything. So that way you can, you will not come to a situation that there is ambiguity on your user story, right? So you have to capture everything. Final question, can you describe how would capture input process output for a new system feature, right? Again, we can talk about the same use case. So data flow accurately and development and testing. I documented all inputs, defined backend processing rules. So even you can write everything step by step under your diagram. So that way the team understanding each component, what is the expected result. Okay, that's all about. So if you want to include this one in your resume, so today you learn the ability to capture business requirement, translate into XML user story. This is you are already doing. Experience mapping process and identify system component, right? So you haven't learned yet backend and API and database full. But if you are, after you complete everything, you can add something in your resume. So in the skill section, you can confidently now talk ability to capture business requirement and convert them into action. So story, experience, identify system component, front-end, back-end, API, and database, understanding how the data flows between them. Proficiency in creating process mapping and visual workflows for business features. Clear communication requirement to technical teams. Understanding of input and process output. So you can just what we covered is just a summary. So based on your requirement, you can customize your resume. Okay, so that's what we learned today. What's coming up next? So tomorrow we'll do a front-end deep dive. Okay, and learn how the UI collects data from user, write user story for UI component like forms and buttons, capture field level requirement and validation rules, hands-on create a simple form and understand how data behind the scenes. Okay, so we'll thank you very much and we'll see you tomorrow. Bye.